Welcome to another episode of The Bloom Show, brought to you by Above All Flowers and New Bloom Solutions. This episode is special. It's called What's the Pinch? It's truly an episode to add information, more information to the flower industry and kind of empower all the decision makers from the top to the bottom. We truly encourage you to share this. If you're a wholesaler, share it with your florists. If you're a distributor, share this with your wholesalers. Today, we're bringing on different experts in the flower industry, in the rose industry and in the rose sector, to talk about the pinch. And the pinch is a super important topic because it affects all stakeholders and shareholders in the industry, in all sectors. So understanding this a little bit more will allow us to make much better decisions. And as I forgot to mention, the Bloom Show's intention is truly to help the flower industry innovate, connect, and bloom through bringing new technologies, information, resources to you, and it's a community show. So what we mean by that is, one, we bring on competitors to all talk together to share the same message, and secondly, dive in, chime in, ask some questions. We do want to thank our sponsor today, which is Crystal. Thank you for always supporting. Do check us on their website, a great company, so we really appreciate them. So now to introduce to you our guest, we are missing a guest right now. I'm hoping nothing happened, so there must be a good reason. But we're going to go on right now as we can. But Nicholas Chang, VP of Sales for Rosaprima, Rodrigo Leiva, VP of Sales and Marketing of Esmeralda Farms, and Eduardo Letort, CEO of Hoja Verde. Two of these people you have seen on the show before. The newcomer is Nicholas Chang, and I know he's going to knock it out of the park. So really excited to bring on. So please allow me to introduce to you our guest for the What's the Pinch. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and ask questions, the most important part. Gentlemen, how are you? Thank you for joining. I'll do like always. Hey, nice to see you, even though we hung out for 15 minutes, but nice to see you all.
Nice to see you
How are
too.
you? So,
Hey, everyone.
thank you,
Thanks for
Eduardo.
having us.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for spending your time with us today and truly getting this message out. I've always, as a sales rep for God knows how many years, it was, why are we having a shortage, not understanding clearly. And I think this is a great opportunity to get that message out. So want to have each of you kind of introduce yourself a little bit so we all know who we're talking. So Nicholas, if you can go first, who are you?
Yeah, hi. Oh, first of all,
You hear
thank
me,
you so much for the invite and being a part of this great
Likewise.
show. I love the initiative. So very happy to be here. My name is Nicholas Chang. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for Rosaprima. For those of you who don't know Rosaprima, we're a farm that is located in Ecuador, north of the Quito in the Cayambe area. We grow mostly roses, over 140 hectares now. But we also have a couple of other products, ranunculus and anemones as well. I've been with the company for just over 10 years now. Done a little bit of everything, but as of 3 years ago, in this position. So very happy to be here and excited to talk about the pinch.
Eduardo?
Thank you, Sahid. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You as
to
well.
meet these guys, Nicolas and Rodrigo. I'm CEO and founder of Hoja Verde. We are a farm dedicated to niche markets. We have about 60 hectares in production at the moment. And we are based on a lot of on fair trade. We follow all the principles of fair trade and a lot of the labels that are put us in a level of trying to fulfill all the standards in environmental, with our workers. So reaching top quality without saving money on the main stuff. So I'm glad to share with you our experience and our thoughts about the pinch, which is what keeps us moving during the year and takes out a lot of our energy. So I'm glad to talk with you guys.
Thank you as well, Eduardo, for being here, and thank you, Nick.
So
Go
my
ahead,
name is
Rodrigo.
Rodrigo Leiva. As I mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Esmeralda Farms, and we are part of the Sunshine Bouquet Company. So we are the wholesale channel for the Sunshine Bouquet Company, and what represents most of sort of the Ecuadorian production for the company. We also, of course, have some land in Colombia where we grow pom-poms and mums. And then, of course, in the Bogota area where we have Alstroemeria spray roses and roses over there. But again, being part of the Sunshine Companies, we've also expanded that portfolio to carry a lot of other flowers in the Bogota region, and that'll continue to kind of expand as well. But yeah, and thrilled to be on the show. I think, Saeed, you're great connector and great at building kind of bridges and helping kind of information flow. So I think, I'm looking forward to the show
sir.
and getting the message out and explaining kind of the pros and cons of the pinch.
Yeah, and it's an exciting show and exciting for you gentlemen on, and truly, it's a true pleasure to have you, and thank you for your time again, and we look forward to the next 45 minutes or hour or however long it goes. So with the question, I know I know I have a lot of questions about the pinch, but I hope we don't answer it all in one answer. But what is the pinch? What truly is the pinch in its simplicity of it? Rodrigo, if you want to take that real quick, what is the pinch? So that people that and very basic, so that people that don't understand what it is and the technology, we'll get into it later. But what's the simple pinch?
Right. I mean, in the simplest form, if you're talking about, let's say, what is a holiday pinch, which is kind of what this is really about, it's a pruning, sort of, it's the pruning of your rose plants in order to kind of stimulate a project, based on your sort of rose projected demands. Basically, you stimulate the production to accommodate a season or a holiday like Valentine's or like Mother's Day, and that pinch typically happens in November, and at that point you then begin to stimulate your production to create the amount of stems you're going to need to kind of meet demand in February, let's say, in a very, very simple term. Yeah, that's essentially it. Obviously, if you're pruning these plants, then that leads to supply dramatically diminishing or production dramatically diminishing in November and December, and then and first week of January, and then starting to kind of slowly creep up for the Valentine period. That's the core of it. That's the basics of it. If anybody else wants to
So let's go. Unless does anybody else have something to chime in? Are we missing something there? Nicholas, Eduardo?
I would say that aside of what Rodrigo has said, is that you prune the plants, but you have to know the cycle of each variety. Each variety in the roses, it has a cycle, so you need to group them, maybe 4 groups or 5 groups, depending on the cycles. So you have to select the date of pruning. So we will come back in the exact days that you want the production to come. So, and as we were talking before, the start of the show depends a lot on the weather. So we have to be take into consideration the weather and hope that everything falls, all the variables fall in the right moment to have everything right on time.
Right. Yeah.
Think you have anything to add there?
Point.
Nick, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Yeah, in general terms, that sounds about right. I think in most cases, really understanding and grouping the varieties, as Eduardo said, knowing what cycles they are, and then just to put a little bit more on the weather. So usually you have to mitigate risk doing so. So it's not like an exact science, okay, you have a variety that's a 90-day cycle, and if you cut it in X week of November, it's going to come out that week. You also depend on the amount of rain, the amount of sunshine, lumens, etc. And so it more than a science, it's a little bit of an art. I think that's kind of it's the art of the pinch, and it's many people that are cutting to make sure that everything comes out. When you're cutting forcefully, you're also forcing the plant in a certain way to give you more production, which in turns, and I guess we'll get into that, but in turn affects quality. And so I think, but in general terms, it's trying to match as best as we can as producers to the demand that we have, and most commonly during Valentine's and Mother's Day. Although what's interesting is that you pinch every day, right? You're pruning and you're cutting and you're pinching every day.
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah.
So yeah, but yes.
Yeah. And that's something I was going to ask is, and let me go to a quick question here. I hope we can kind of answer this, but this would be this being very Rodrigo. But what's the difference between the Ecuadorian and Colombian roses? Which are the best? If we want to answer that. Anybody want to take that?
I think it really depends. Look, there's no question about it that the luminosity and sort of the light intensity you get from Ecuador produces a really spectacular rose. And traditionally, they're known to have larger head sizes, but a lot of times head size is also determined by the kind of varieties you select. And I would argue that the gap or the delta that existed 10, 15 years ago is much narrower today than it was, or even, in some cases it's completely been mitigated than it was, So 15 years ago, people say, oh, the Colombian roses are smaller headed than the Ecuadorian, and it was all factual. But I think today, if you have a very good Colombian producer, they've selected very good varieties that tend to have larger heads, I think the difference in head size has been somewhat mitigated. There's no question, and we're very proud of the farm we have in Ecuador. That's very close to both of my co-stars. It's unique geography that produces a really exceptional product, and we're very proud of it. But I'm very proud of the Colombian product as well. So how about that for a non-answer?
Anybody else want to pick that up?
I would say that yes.
Go for it.
I'll go for it. Yes, there's been
Go for it.
Before, as Rodrigo said, there was a big difference. Now it has reduced. I would say that maybe Ecuadorian farms, due to the sunlight that we get, that is a bit higher than in Colombia, vase life is a little bit longer. Maybe a few days on vase life that you can see in some varieties. Wow. And also maybe a characteristic of the Ecuadorian production is the amount of varieties we manage. Usually a farm in Ecuador can have over 100 varieties in one single farm, while in Colombia, that would be maybe half, because I would say a lot of the farms in Colombia are more into red for the programming, for the pinch, and we are Ecuador more focused into a whole year production. So that might be also a difference.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, is that absolutely the color mix is different in Colombia, and certainly even just, the percentage of red that makes up a Colombian rose farm relative to the percentage of red of an Ecuadorian farm is very, very different, right? A Colombian rose farm could have 30, 35, 40% of its production be red. That's a very high number in Ecuador.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So thank you, Nick. Do you want to take that, or you're good?
Well, I'm
all right. So, thank you. Question. Well, go ahead. What were you going to say, Nick?
I'm a little biased, but I think it also depends on the farms that are producing the varieties. You have really good production of amazing roses in Colombia, and you have okay production. The same thing in Ecuador, and I think the difference also is within the hands of the farms themselves. So yes, luminosity, yes, varieties, and all of that. But I do attribute it more so to that. So I would leave it at that. Great question. Whoever.
Yeah, great question. Great. Thank you, everybody, for daring to answer it and answer it right.
But I think I think there's a point there. Sorry to interject for a second, but I think there's a point there, is that truthfully, in the last also 10, 15 years, like I said, that difference in head size has changed. I think overall, one thing that we are seeing is that in general, the quality of the flowers from both countries have improved dramatically, and the consumers having a far better experience today, truthfully, than they did 15 years ago. Be it through post-harvest processes, better variety selection, better conditions, whatever it may be. I think we're all, just as an industry, doing a better job.
Okay, that's great answer, Rodrigo.
Yeah,
Great answer.
that's right.
So let me go to the next question. So I hope this is a valid question, but why is the pinch done? Are there multiple reasons? Is it only supply? Nick did allude to a little bit that it's done on a daily basis. So why is the pinch done? We might repeat our answers over and over again, but that's a good thing because we're saying the same message. But why is the pinch done? Whoever wants to take that. Eduardo, if you'd like to take that.
Because there is demand. There's a demand in those holidays. Mainly, I would say Valentine and Mother's Day. So we need to follow production with demand. If I would choose not to have Valentine, Mother's Day, open production is more it gives you more productivity along the year, and maybe a better return per square meter. But we need to follow demand. If we don't catch up with demand, maybe there will be substitutes that will be bought instead of flowers. So we need to follow the demand.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, this is using Nick's words of this is an art. This is an indispensable art, or non-negotiable art, or a piece of engineering that needs to be done. Any farm can produce the same amount of stems and just carry kind of production flat all year long. You can have a 30-hectare farm producing 575,000 stems a week or whatever, let's say, and you could just keep that flat all year long. But the reality is there is not one importer, wholesale buyer, florist or flower designer or supermarket buyer that wants exactly their everyday quantities at Valentine's and Mother's Day. And in order for you to be able to produce additional stems, you perform what is the pinch, as opposed to kind of what Nick was also alluding to, which was kind of that healthy pruning that is done to your plants in order to create a nice structure for your plants. But what we're talking about, kind of an increase in supply with the sort of the holiday pinch that happens in November. Yeah, that is done absolutely to accommodate the demands of the marketplace, for sure.
Yeah, agree with what both have said. It's definitely on the side of demand. If the demand was in a different way, we would obviously accommodate. I think the interesting part about this, and I've always, being in the industry for this long, but before that, I was in manufacturing, and it's one of the only businesses where you produce and then you go out and kind of sell, or you do it's like kind of backwards in the sense that you can't like say, okay, I'm going to, or we try to do that, but it's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm gonna, I'm building a car, I need to get these pieces, and I have unlimited amounts of, so you get, okay, this is my demand, and then you go in and you say, I'm going to produce to supply this demand. For us, it's not like you can say, oh, you can I want only this, and then I want this, and then I want this for this plant, right? So what we end up doing is we mitigate that and try to match the supply and demand through the pinch, is basically what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, and while you're doing that focusing on Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, but of course there's consequences to that pinch and to those actions. There's consequences that occur throughout the rest of the year. Obviously, like I mentioned, if you pinch and prune all many of your stems in November, then December you have a minimal amount of output in the beginning of January, and then March you have a minimal amount of output. Your availability of product goes way down, to then start rising again up in April and May, to then drop again in June, to then rise again in July, August, which I hear is a really popular time to have flowers, and then go back down and then rise again in October. And you say, well, and then remember, this is the Valentine pinch. So what's rising up again in October is a whole lot of different hues, or October, November is a whole lot of different hues of pink, red, lavender, again, because it's, you know, it's the product coming back up. So also color mix, you know, is it's going to be what it is. Kind of the decisions that we make help dictate what happens the rest of the year.
I want to bring in a quick little thanks, guys. You rock. Ricardo, thanks for the question, Ricardo. I think we answered it pretty well. And David Kaplan, as you know, my partner, is asking, we have seen some farms grow red only and pin whole farm for Valentine's Day. What is your opinion on that? Anybody want to take that?
You know, obviously you can pinch for Valentine's Day, but you're going to get those stems back again in Mother's Day, and certainly red is a little less, you know, is lower in demand. I'm not saying there isn't a home for it. I think we need to be dynamic as an industry and find a way to kind of make these puzzle pieces gel, and that's why I think the show is so important. But obviously, you know, if you do that, you're going to get a lot of red in Mother's Day. Obviously, that also means you have no red in December, by the way, if you do that, which is fine. And one of the trade-offs also of the pinch that I think is important to talk about is as you make the decisions to pinch, you're really putting all your eggs in the Valentine basket. You're really saying, okay, I'm going to reduce all my production right now with the hopes that the weather cooperates, that there aren't any freezes, which, you know, every January everybody talks about freezes in Bogota or you know, in some places in Quito, assuming that there's no freezes, there's no hailstorms or whatever weather effects, in order to kind of hit that target date that you had for the pinch. And it might be slightly early or it might be slightly later, you know, but that you're getting that range. The other consequence is, what if you miss and you're late? That's a pretty dramatic consequence. And I'm not talking about from a revenue perspective, but far, far greater than that. What about losing a customer? You know, what if you just don't make the holiday and you lose a customer? What is the value of a valuable customer? So you're really putting kind of your eggs on this in this sort of Valentine basket, and that's another risk that's out there for the growers for sure. And you know, I mean, yes, somebody might wish to pinch everything for Valentine's, but you know, you need some red roses in December. It's good to have, and you're going to get them in May, I guess. And that's something.
And I think that has to do with the question I was about to ask: is what are the negatives and positives? So the negatives are, you better be careful, right? No, but it's true. So Eduardo, I guess, and Nick, what are the negatives and positives of the pinch for companies such as yours?
As Rodrigo said, I mean, it's a gamble. You don't know if you're going to hit it right on the exact dates that you expect. If you are too late, I mean, you lose a lot. The gains is that you might reach a better price because of the demand on certain colors, specifically on reds, that you get a better margin on those sales. Those are the positive, that your clients also will have more flowers to sell to the customers, and they will also get better earnings. That will be that's one of the positive aspects. The negative is that some red varieties that are getting popular at the moment, for example, Explorer, you cannot pinch, or if you pinch, you will not get the same amount of stems, because it's a variety that requires a lot of foliage, and you need to have an open crop. So Explorer is a high on demand, but you cannot fulfill the orders because you cannot pinch. So you need to have, like in Ecuador, I would say in the Ecuadorian system, you need to have reds for the whole year and some reds for these special holidays. So you need to have a mix of that. In our case, we increase production maybe 30% more. So our pinch is not a huge pinch. We pinch mainly reds, what we call table pinch, which means that you pinch everything completely. And then on colors, we do open pinch, just a few stems here and there, and which you will not notice in a whole year production. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is that you also usually have to pinch a little bit more than what you're expecting to get, because you actually lose a percentage of it, right? So really the negative, I mean, the positives, we all know what they are. Obviously, we want our customers to have a successful Valentine's Day. Most of our customers need a multiplier, I mean, of crazy amounts. And obviously, you know, it depends on how you manage, for example, the difference between having many standing orders, or there's farms that don't have that many standing orders and they'll play more on the open market. So that's a strategy of different farms and different things like that. But in general, the you lose production. You need to calculate a little bit more because you lose that. The plants are somewhat stressed. So as Eduardo said, if we could have if the demand were stable year long, hey, that would be fantastic for producer, for everyone. But it's like that. And the other thing is, if you get cold weather or hot weather, it can bring the plant. It can bring that So going back to how this works, right? You cut the plant, you have cycles of 90 days, meaning you cut it and you'll get a plant that in 90 days will bloom and will be ready to cut, harvest, pack, and send out, right? If you cut, right, let's say you say, okay, it's going to be November. This is 90 days out for me to hit that, that the 4th or 5th, whatever date you're planning to hit between, you have to kind of spread it out. Once you cut it and you get like a lower amount of luminosity, or you get a lot of rain, or you get a lot of water, that cycle could become longer. It could be a 95-day cycle for that variety, or even sometimes more or less. And so that's when we are all talking about, oh, is Valentine's coming in a little bit earlier, or is it coming in a little bit late? So all of us as producers, what we do is we'll pinch for the holiday during a period of time of 2-3 weeks, so that you still get you get a little bit, you try and hit the actual peak, but it's difficult to do so.
Yeah.
So but yeah, the risks are just loss in revenue, customers. It's an art.
Yeah. And I think also you stress the plant, like you mentioned, and you can produce thinner stems afterwards. Part of the effects is some thinner stems too, which obviously, look, we sell a product that is aesthetically, it's a visual thing, and that's obviously a slightly, let's call it, decreasing grade of the product. It can happen.
Eduardo,
other issues. Yes, other issues that we have to take into consideration are the logistics. Understand that for example, we are here in the Cayambe region, and most of the farms, they cycle themselves to the weather. With that, I mean, the farms that are close by will follow the same pattern of weather. So, for example, like 2 years ago, there was no production until the 25th of January, 27th of January. And then suddenly all the farms made a peak, and all the cargo agencies were overloaded with boxes. So there were trucks waiting for 48 hours on the street to get them unloaded. So that's another problem. If the weather at that moment it was cold, and then suddenly we have like 5-7 days of warm, nice, beautiful weather. So the farms came right in 2-3 days production, and that could disturb the logistics, and there will be not enough planes on time. The cargo agency will be full of boxes. So that's also a problem when we do the pinch and the weather cycles all the farms together.
It's all about timing. That's what it seems like it. And then, so coming down to it, how much does a pinch cost? What's the cost? What are the losses in sales for the seasons that you don't have the flowers? Is there a way of averaging that cost? How much does it cost to do? What's the cost associated with doing the pinch for companies like yourselves?
I think it's hard to measure, and every year is different, right? There's so many different factors that kind of don't allow you to actually put a cost on it.
Okay.
But I think that we all look to do the pinch, really, and just specifically talking like Mother's Day, Valentine's. We're really looking for enough supply for our customers. Like we're trying to fulfill that supply. So I don't, at least, and I know for all of us here, but for our customers, it's of the, they rely on us year round obviously, but these are the moments when we also need to come through. These are the moments where, you know, our florists, this is their World Cup, and I don't think we're measuring, or at least, you know, personally at Rosaprima, we're really looking to make sure that we can give that the utmost or the best product, the best customer experience during these periods of time. We're really not looking to see how much it costs. We look at that on a yearly basis, and the pinch for the holiday, I think most of us would agree that it ends up being, there's so many associated costs, logistics, everything is a nightmare. Like everything is more expensive that, I mean, I don't know if anyone, you know, for our customers, it's like a really good period of time where they can make a good amount of revenue. But for us, it's not like that big amount of revenue. You know, it's not like like everyone would think. I don't know, maybe Rodrigo, Eduardo, if I'm saying something that's not correct, but you know, I think it's.
I mean, I think part of this is kind of each company is unique and has to look at it, kind of approach it kind of focused on their customer, like you mentioned, and being very customer centric on it. But there, you know, for us, there's, you know, there is a math to it. Obviously, you know, not just the actual act of the pinch itself, but certainly, yeah, you do have to measure that dip in production, and kind of something that Nick had alluded to before of how you decide to make your standing orders. Let's say if you're looking at kind of from a, you know, or everyday business, let's call it just what your everyday needs are. Obviously that gets diminished in you know, in the lulls, you know, the peaks and valleys and the lulls of that in the valleys. You have to kind of cover that. And obviously, you know, we as an organization really lean into and have our best partnerships and our most collaborative relationships are with customers that are really with us the 52-week business, but are also with us and lean into each other in July, in October, when we have those big increases in supply. We can find a way to work together to build everyone's top line and to find a way to create opportunities out of these extra stems that come out. It is a partnership, and if we all want these high multipliers, you know, we as an organization lean into those who really kind of you know, we can work together and build a strong partnership to help move stems year round. And that, you know, again, as you're looking at how do you price a stem? Well, what do you price it for? Well, you have to look at obviously your year-round sales of this, what you're going to get extra for the holiday, but it's also these moments here where, you know, it's July, August, it's October. You know, looking at that as well. So we measure that as well. That's obviously part of it.
So give me a quick second, gentlemen. Go ahead, Eduardo.
There are some specific costs that we can define. I cannot give you the numbers because I don't have them right now. But when you pinch, then the plants start growing all the stems at the same level. Then you need to give additional fertilizer rounds or increase your amount of fertilizer until they get into the head stage a few days before cutting. So that's an increase in fertilizers. Also, you need to hire more people for the post-harvest because you don't want to go too many hours processing the flowers, the roses. As soon as you can get them in the cooler, so they will cool down. They will have to hydrate better. So you need to hire more people for maybe 2 months or a month and a half, something like that, to train them. You need to train them before and then put them in processing. You need to buy packaging material in advance. So you need to buy maybe early December, order the packaging material to be on your warehouse ready to process what you expected to produce. And if you don't hit the target you wanted, maybe you will remain with boxes for another month, a month and a half, but you already paid them.
Or not enough boxes.
or not enough boxes. Then you want to order and there's not enough. The factories cannot give you at the moment. So those are the certain costs that you have to add for Valentine.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Any business where there's an expansion and contraction like that, it's tough.
Rodrigo, sorry. Mm-hmm. Rodrigo, if you could give me a second, I have Edwin wanting to come in, or he was stuck in the rain, so I want to bring him in. So this is Edwin Verdezoto, the owner of ours and honored to have you here as I worked for many years and also for Esmeralda. But thank you, Edwin, for showing up. I appreciate it. I know you got stuck in the rain, so no worries at all.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. It's raining pretty heavy in Miami right now, and I got stuck for longer than I thought I would.
It is.
Thank you. Very nice to see everybody.
Yeah, our internet is a little too. Thank you. Our Wi-Fi, everybody's Wi-Fi is a little bubbly today because of the bad weather as well. So apologize for anything like that. So, Edwin, please share briefly who you are. Many of us know you. I know you myself, but can you share your background, please?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm the president of Royal Flowers. We are basically growers in Ecuador and of roses mostly, but we also grow other products. And then we also import and distribute them out of Miami. And so we reach pretty much all the wholesale market around the United States. And we ship directly out of Ecuador for Europe, for the wholesalers in Europe and other markets in the world, in the Middle East and other markets, I've been doing this for 31 years, so I've been doing this for a while. Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you again for being here, Edwin. Appreciate it. We have a couple of questions from our audience. So let's say here, I'm a little, okay, let's give this one a whirl. If we want to answer, we do. So we have Viking roses. What about the effects of shipping flowers by boat? And is this keeping them for a long period of time? No need to pinch them? Is this something for the future? Anybody want to take that? So I guess what they're asking is ocean containers.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer part of it. So we personally don't ship anything by a container, and I'm talking about Sunshine and Esmeralda companies. We don't ship anything by a container. I'm not against it, but it's just for us, it hasn't seemed like the right fit. Obviously, when you're shipping by a container, you are adjusting your planting programs. Not that that's bad. I'm just you're obviously getting stems earlier in order to accommodate supply chain. So that's not really a space that we're involved in at all.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
We do a little bit of shipping via container, but it's even though it's not our preferred route for shipping, the flowers do need to be treated a little differently. It is possible. I don't like to do it. I prefer to ship everything by air. The only times we've had to do it is when there was just no capacity to bring it by air anymore. And it was either that or nothing, then we picked it. But even though it worked well, we had no claims, no problems. All the product was inspected upon arrival. It had no problems at all. And I'm talking about roses. It can be done. It's just that it's not our normal course of business, bringing it by air every day.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll chime in there. So I guess what they were asking also is, would you need to pinch if you're doing maritime shipments as well? And the answer would be yes, right? Because if you do maritime shipments, it just means that they'll leave a little bit earlier, but you still have to do your regular process of pinching. And then, as Edwin mentioned as well, you have additional processes to do this. We're also we did a couple of tests years back, but kind of are in the same boat as Rodrigo, where it just hasn't been a good fit for our company either. But it's out there. I definitely think that there needs to be more testing. I would say that the big question mark for everyone is the side of quality, and it's tied very closely with what Edwin said, that there's different processes to managing sea freight, but you would still have to pinch. I mean, you still have to go through the whole thing. It's just a couple of it'll be days before, and there's a lot of mass market companies do 80% of their shipping Valentine's. They'll do maritime shipments, not you, Rodrigo, but others do.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. No,
and they're pinching quite heavily, right, to make sure that they can get those huge multipliers.
Yeah. Yeah, we just don't do it, but I'm not saying that it doesn't work. And certainly there's containers, like Nick says, that come in every day with maritime flowers. We just don't do it, but it is done absolutely every day. And people that do it are good companies that do a good job. It's just not a fit for us.
Great. And then, so I have a question here, which I'm thinking it's a kind of repetition, but I'm wanting to understand if I'm asking the right question. But which are the side effects of a heavy pinch up production, and how can the farm mitigate them? And I think we've kind of covered that, but I want to think of it as in a florist perspective, in a wholesaler perspective, how is it affecting their supply? Are they seeing a lack of reds right before we get to Christmas? Are they seeing a shot up in pricing? How, if you put yourself in the shoes of a wholesaler and florist, what are they experiencing because of the pitch? Can someone take that?
That you, as Rodrigo said earlier, that in case of the market, you will not get enough reds, pinks during Christmas and early January. Yeah. Then after the pinch, after you harvest for Valentine's, then you will have low production during March. So you'll not have also reds and pinks and maybe whites in the market. And then you'll have the farms will have to lose some production in order to open the crop again, because we don't want a rebounds of Valentine again in maybe early May, mid-May, depending on the cycles. So we need to open the crop because we don't need much reds for Mother's Day. So we need to sacrifice some production to open the crop as much as possible and as soon as possible. So those are the tricks of the business. Not enough flowers when you want them, and too many when you don't want them. So the florists, they need to find suppliers that will have open production, or the wholesalers that will cover at least their standing orders to their clients all year round. Mm-hmm. That's what they need in order to not to lose too many customers during those months.
Right. And if you do that, obviously, let's say, again, going back to my example of that 30-hectare rose farm, let's say, and you have, let's say, 575,000 stems of production. Well, if you can have it flat, or if you want to make sure that you have 400,000 for standing orders, 400,000 stems, then you'll adjust your pinch. It just means that your peaks won't be as high as it would have been had you done this big, heavy pinch before. Your peaks are going to be a little bit duller, but they're going to have a spike in production and a drop. But you always have to make sure that you're accommodating in standing orders, let's say, your lowest period of production in the year. Whatever that lowest number is, that's your limit of how many stems you can sell on fixed order. The rest of it, you're going to have to sell open market.
Thank you.
I would like to add that quality also makes a little bit of an impact, because when you're pinching heavy, and as Eduardo said, you have to fertilize more. You're asking the plant to produce more, therefore you have to feed it more. Now, the weather is going to play a key role in that aspect, because even if you feed it more, but if there's not enough sunlight, the plant might not be able to process all the nutrients. So the energy from the sun will not be there, so it won't be able to process all the nutrients. So therefore, there could be an effect on quality, but that has to do a lot with the weather too. So there's several variables. It's temperature, it's amount of sunlight, it's the amount of nutrition you give it. So where in the plant you made the pinch? Is it too high? Is it too low? There's a technique to everything, and it all comes up to quality. Now, of course, you're asking the plant to produce more per plant, therefore the quality is going to be slightly affected. How much it gets affected depends on all the different variables. It's a hard one to answer,
And so how does all this, right, the production, the putting more fertilizer, training the team, training people to handle this, does this increase your price when Valentine's Day come, when Mother's Day come, when everybody's flipping out price? Is this one of the reasons behind that? Someone?
Sorry, could you ask that again? Sorry, it broke up, at least on my end, quite a bit.
So considering, no, sorry about that. Considering the efforts that are done with this, lack of production during certain months, adding extra fertilizer, putting extra effort in training employees, all this cost, does this affect the price when holiday comes in?
Yes, obviously your general costs obviously have an effect. That's one of the
Okay.
levers that has an effect on pricing. But again, we live in a dynamic market,
Of course.
and ultimately the market also decides what the price is. So as much as I'd like to tell everybody, look, it cost me a dime to do that, 5 cents to do that, 20 cents to do that, the market doesn't always listen. So I mean, that is part of it. The market forces will do their thing, and obviously it's ultimately it's a supply and demand mechanics that help determine
well.
pricing as well. Yeah.
And then a question that a couple people, does anybody else want to add? Or no? All right. So another question is, why not to do the pitch? Is there a reason why not to do the pitch? I know there's some farms that don't do the pitch, small farms. I guess it seems like all the headaches. But what are the reasons why not to do the pitch? Because I do want to get an understanding that this is not a sacrifice, but it is something we do to have supply for the customer. But why would you not do the pitch?
It's a service. I mean, you have to give to your client what they want. I mean, you cannot tell them, look, sorry, that this is my strategy, and I cannot give you the demand that you want. You will lose customers.
Yep.
I mean, it is a supply and offer. If you are not able to supply, then you will lose customers all year round, because they don't want to be with you. They want to be with you also when they need the most. And if you are not there, somebody will be.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, it's a service thing. There is no customer out there that wants their everyday quantities at Valentine's and Mother's Day. It doesn't exist. They're not out there to be had. And so this is absolutely, it's a service that you do in order to kind of be able to respond to your customers' needs and allow them to have successful holidays. That's when they have high levels of traffic. That's Valentine's Day is the day, is the Super Bowl or World Cup, as Nick mentioned. It's about being there for that. But sure, there are absolutely farms out there, I'm sure, that just leave production flat all year long and just produce their stems and off they go. But they're going to, I don't know how they'll do with the customers that want more Valentine's and Mother's Day. That's not sure how that would work.
And just to add to that, Rodrigo, you talked about it prior as well, but we help, right? It's a service, so we help during these periods of time. We take that hit, using the pinch, and we'll get those flowers to them. You get those back in certain periods of time, and that's why you also need that support year round. That's also why you come back, July, August, and we need to kind of figure out where all this goes, and it's that partnership. And so I think customers, and I do know a couple of, I think they're like smaller farms that'll have like just a little bit, and it'll sell to maybe one or two customers, but I haven't seen that's like something, it's hard. Most customers are looking for those peaks. They need the product when they want it, and when you come through, that's when you generate that long-term business.
Yeah,
definitely.
In the case of the companies, the larger companies, everybody has to segment the farm. So you pinch the part, and the other part is on open production, because you can't run out of flowers either right before the holiday or after the holiday. So what I notice is that some companies may take the strategy of not pinching, because it also helps them stabilize the farm. And if the production is open throughout the 52 weeks of the year, they can get a healthier crop. It could also be more consistent. You're not going to have the ups and downs in the good weather, the bad weather. The plants may produce a little bit more per year. So I can see how a smaller company might prefer to do that. I understand it. Now, of course, larger companies, we have to provide the service that you guys are talking about, and we have to. There's no other way around it.
Thank you for those answers. Appreciate it, gentlemen. So I wanted to ask, before we spoke, we kind of dipped into Mother's Day a little bit. So I wanted to have a final question. Let me see if there's any comments here real quick. Let's see. Okay, I guess it's a big question, but how important is it to participate in the world market? So you have clients in countries that do not celebrate Valentine's Day, but on the other side, celebrate holidays you do not have in US or Canada. So I guess it's diversifying your market.
I think it's
How
critical.
important is that to the rose industry?
It's very important because, like you guys were saying, when you pinch for Valentine's Day, you get that crop back. So we try to open it, but as much as we try to open it, you get a large percentage of the crop back anyways. So what do you do with that crop? Throwing it away would be too expensive. No one can afford it. So you have to sell it in other markets. It's important to carry other markets for that. The same right before you pinch. You might have other markets where you can place that crop so you don't have to throw it all away. So everything in the world is linked together. Nothing works independently. Nothing is separate from the rest. Everything is integrated. So it doesn't take anything away from one market or the other. You're synchronizing your crop so you can sell it and therefore bring the price to where we can sell it at today. Otherwise, our sales price could exceed that if you start throwing that away, and then the market can pay for it anyway.
Great answer. Thank you, Edwin. Anybody else? All right. So I do want to ask one final question. And you're going to say something, Rodrigo?
No. Agreed.
Nope.
I agree with Edwin 100%. More customers globally, so you're always better.
The better. different pots. The question is, if we can go around the table real quick and give us a sense of what we feel, how the weather is affecting production now, and what are we expecting for Mother's Day? It's too early, but what are we expecting? Kind of just a little touch base weather and Mother's Day production.
Well, we have seen in
Rodrigo. Or not.
So,
go ahead, Eduardo. Go ahead.
Eduardo,
go ahead, Rodrigo.
Yeah, I was saying that the weather is being. We had a lot more rain than what we should have for the month of March and early April. So it's been raining quite a bit more. For this week, we expect an improvement in the weather. We see in our production that it's picking up a little bit this week. And reach expected production in the next 10 to 15 days. If there's not a change in the weather. As I told you before we got into the meeting, there's a chance that El Nino will hit in the next months.
Yes.
So the El Nino is going to play an interesting role in the coming months. We don't know how, but it will play something. Maybe too much rain, or maybe will be droughts and frost for summer. Who knows? But El Nino will do something in the next months.
How has El Nino affected in the past? I know you had mentioned that as well. There's two types of El Nino effects. So how has that affected in the past production?
Well, the last heavy El Nino was in 95 or 94. We had a lot of problems in Ecuador. We had rivers that overflowed, bridges that were destroyed. Not in the highlands. In the highlands, it was fine. I was not in production at that moment, so maybe Edwin, that is a few years older than in production, he might remember that.
Of course, I remember it clearly. You don't forget those things. Yeah, I remember it frosted. The temperatures dropped below 0 degrees Celsius. Pipes froze. They were in Bogota. There were icicles hanging off the plants. I mean, it got nasty. We in our specific case, in one of our farms, we lost 35% of the Valentine's Day crop. But you know what? That's what happens. It's out of your hands. You can't control it. There's very little you can do when the situation gets to that point.
Yeah, I think just to add, I think we were talking about this earlier as well before we started the show. But in the past couple of years, the variation of the weather patterns, both in Colombia, worldwide, have gotten a lot more. It's a larger delta, and so that is really it's taken a toll, I believe, for most farms in terms of not just more or less. It's just the unpredictability of projections has a lot to do with how the weather patterns kind of go up and down. And so what we've seen is you see a little bit, you know, or at least in Ecuador, and I was there a couple of weeks back, and you get to the farm and it's hailing, and then you look, you know, you send a couple of emails, you make a couple of calls, you're out there and it's sunny, and you can, you know, it's completely sunny, and then it continues going like that. So I think that, you know, for us growers, it's gotten very hard to predict. I think we're all investing in, you know, if in at least at Rosaprima, we're investing into a lot of technology and a lot of our people, processes, to make sure that we can get the right projections. I think for Mother's Day, you know, we've crossed all the T's, and we're doing all the check marks and everything we need to do. I think production is looking good to have a successful Mother's Day. But again, we it's true, and I sometimes our customers get a little bit. They're like, well, "What do you mean the weather?" Or it really has a lot to do. I mean, we're growing crops here, and so the weather and those changes really affect us. But you know, we've been in the industry for a long time, and it's really funny because you'll know, like when it's really cold, you'll have people opening up. You can open up the greenhouses or lower the curtains. The amount of humidity and things like that. So we work on those things to mitigate that. But personally, I expect that you know, we'll be somewhat tight in general. It'll be somewhat tight during Mother's Day, but things are looking positively with a little bit better weather for now.
Yeah, I think the weather. Yeah, I think the weather is certainly a challenge, and has been for months. Again, like Nick says, from a sort of forecasting perspective, it's certainly been a challenge, and our statistics team has been very hard at work with that. But you know, how Mother's Day is looking, I'm getting a lot of good thumbs ups from the farm right now. I'm going today to Medellin. I was in Bogota a week and a half ago, and I'm going to go to Quito next week. And kind of all of that is, you know, part of it is looking to see how we're doing today. You know, I'll be in Medellin, and I'll make sure that our pom-pom crop is coming in nicely and on time. And then next week, like I said, it'll be in Ecuador. You know, this is a big holiday for us. It's a lot of volume. The Mother's Day peak is bigger than Valentine's. It's a lot of flowers. You know, it's kind of like what, you know, that old story, that old adage where everybody's got a mother, not everybody's got a lover. You know, we're going to be moving a lot of stems this coming season, and we're working really hard not only to make sure that we're on time, but that the quality is right. Obviously, moisture and humidity in the air is not a friend of good quality, so you need to be very careful with that and manage that and treat that. And that's what we're focused on right now, and you know, servicing the customers as best we can.
Thank you. Anybody else?
One last thing just to add to that, and which is interesting. Mother's Day is one of those holidays where it's a little bit easier also for everyone, because you know, you're looking for a lavender rose, or you're looking for flowers, right? You're looking to get that beauty to your mother and things like that. In Valentine's, it's very specific towards like a color, towards a variety, and so that just implicates it's a little bit more stress for everyone, for the entire chain. But Mother's Day, usually it's more product, right? But it's a little bit, it's easier, right? You have a little bit more substitutions, you have a little bit more leeway, and so that always makes it a fun holiday, I like to say, in comparison to Valentine's.
Yeah, demand is more flexible, but certainly the strains on the supply chain and infrastructure, your warehousing, your people, you're moving more than Valentine's. But yes, it's certainly on a demand side. It's a breath of fresh air.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much to all four of you for being here. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Nick. We decided to call you Nick today, Eduardo and Edwin. So thank you to everybody being here and sharing your expertise, sharing insight into your business. Truly appreciate the time you share, and like I encourage the audience and the wholesalers and florists and growers to share this with your customers, because it is a informed, unified message on what the pinch is and how it affects all parties involved. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to put you in the Bloom room as I say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you. I apologize for being late.
Here, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
No worries. Thank you very much. So there we have it. It's a great episode, an honor to have these amazing gentlemen and professionals in the industry. Just Edwin, 31 something years. Will Gonzalez, an employee of Royal, saying great show. I did have Mimi saying so much info here. Glad I go back and rewatch. And then we also have Kuki, which is a big supporter out of Africa, saying also I'm in Kenya too. So just so that we're all aware that also Kenya is being affected as well. But truly, thank you to everybody. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Next week, or in 2 weeks, we're having Jimmy the Tulip and Barry Gottlieb coming on and talking about self-improvement and motivation and things like that. So it's going to be super excited. Do remember that this show is intended for you all. So please feel free, again, I'll repeat, to wholesalers, florists, everybody, share it. The more information that's out there, the more unified message we have, the more of an educated decision and more empowered that we are as a group. So thank you again. Truly appreciate everyone that was on, and hope to see you again next time. Talk to you later.